Hello, my name is Michela Abrams, founder of Mocha Plus. Welcome to our Collective Conscience series. We created this series for you to bring together great minds from around the world on myriad topics that we hope will expand your mind, will challenge your current beliefs, and give you an opportunity to be inspired with every video. Enjoy.
We're thrilled to have Christopher Dennis with us here this evening. I've got my nutcracker jam on. I'm just ready to go, and I hope you guys all are too. So without further ado, really looking forward to this conversation, and I'll hand it to Michela and Christopher.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Would you do me a favor and unmute Christopher?
I'd be happy to.
Wonderful. And
I think he has to unmute himself.
Chris, you may have to unmute yourself there. Okay, perfect. Well, listen, this is a wonderful number 38 because we're officially into now the holiday season, past our Thanksgiving. I don't know about anybody else, but it seems like warp speed from Thanksgiving night until we get to New Year's Day. And for this week, Shelley and I thought, what would be so celebratory that maybe also was turned on its head, like pretty much everything else this year with COVID. And I thought of this magnificent man who I have the honor and pleasure of working with at our church, St. Hilary in Tiburon, and who is the production director of the San Francisco Ballet, an institution that if you have had the chance to go to a ballet performance in San Francisco, you will know the majesty and the beauty of it. But of course, all of you, some of you are here, I see from New York and Boston. You too have some magnificent ballet companies. But Chris, we are so happy to have you tonight to talk about what it means to be the production director of a ballet company right now. And now that this is Nutcracker season, which if no one goes to the ballet at any other time of year, they certainly try and get there for this performance. So we're going to explore a little bit about that, or maybe a lot about that, and all of the inner workings. But before we get into that, I want to thank you and welcome you and tell us all a little bit about how you got to this wonderful role with the San Francisco Ballet.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you, Michela, for inviting me to this number 38, as you call it. So very exciting to be here and to speak to all of you. I can give you just a little quick backstory about who I am and where I'm from. So for those who don't know me, which is most of you, I'm actually from Toronto, Canada, born and raised. So I am a Canadian living in the lovely United States of America. And I'm here with my family as well. I have my beautiful wife, Cynthia, and I have two daughters, Mackenzie, who will be 18 on Friday, and Remy, who is 13. And yes, we live in Marin, specifically in Corte Madera, and through our church is where I know Michela. And working in ballet, I have been for quite some time, probably almost 25 plus years. And in Toronto, I worked for the National Ballet of Canada, where I'm actually trained as a lighting designer. And so I studied design in Canada at Ryerson University in the theater program. So that's where a lot of my training came from. And then I spent many years freelancing, working at the Shaw Festival, the Stratford Festival, designing, and other projects, and then landed 14 seasons at the National Ballet of Canada as their resident designer. And then things were starting to feel like, oh, it's time to expand, and I got a job offer at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and I spent a year there as their assistant resident designer at the Met. And as lovely as New York is, just wasn't quite the right fit at the Met, but it does hold a special place in my heart. And then from New York, a position here in San Francisco opened up, and the position was technical director. And I have such a strong lighting background, and the joke is, lighting designers make the best technical directors because we spend a lot of time looking after all the other concerns and issues in a production, because the lighting designer is trying to figure out everything else for everyone else. So with that said, I shifted gears into the more of the management aspect of production. And so when I came to San Francisco, they were looking for somebody who had a strong lighting background, but a technical direction background to help lead the technical department. And then a year later, I was promoted to production director, where I work very closely with Helgi Thomason, and I manage, well, I tell people I manage egos for a living, believe it or not. We're talking everything from dancers, choreographer, designers, musicians, stage crew, everybody. They're all fantastic in what they do, but they're also very demanding in what they need, and it's all because we try to create and put on sort of world-class art. So I have the joy of managing a lot of those different individuals at different times with at a different capacity, and I have a great staff of individuals who I work closely with in helping me manage all of that. So that's just a little history about who I am, where I'm from, and how I landed here in the Bay Area. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, so, you know, as patrons of the ballet, we see the magic and the beauty, right, of every production. But just give us an idea as it regards the San Francisco Ballet, what that really takes in terms of numbers of people from the ballet company to all of the technical aspects, the design, everything that it really takes to produce one ballet.
I mean, so it all starts with a vision, which is the choreographer, who is inspired by music, obviously, whether it be Tchaikovsky or whether it be a current day composer. And through the music and the vision of the choreographer, that's where it starts. And then from there, you build your creative team, you get your set designer, your costume designer, your lighting designer, and then you're working with the dancers, of course, as a choreographer, and depending on the scale and the magnitude of the ballet, you can work with 3 dancers or you can work with 35 dancers. So it's really about this vision that a choreographer has, who's like a director in a movie or anything of that nature. And then through that, depending on the scope and scale of the vision that a choreographer has, or in this case, even Helgi, our artistic director, you build your team out accordingly. And it all starts first with the dancers to begin with, but then, you know, you're bringing in the costume designer because outside of the dancers need to wear something. So that's a huge undertaking in itself, designing and then going through fittings and making sure the costumes are all wearable for dance and can be cleaned. And so you're working with a whole wardrobe team. And then if there's scenery on stage, like in our case, there's a lot of magical scenery we have on stage. And so we're working with the designers, and then we're working with the craftspeople like the scenic construction crew and the props crew and the painting crew to help bring to life sort of the scenic elements. And then you're working with the lighting team, who adds the sort of final touches with the lighting and the special effects that go into it. You have your hair and makeup team also, and those are the people on stage, but then you have your marketing team who's promoting the product. You have your fundraising team who are raising money for the product. You have your school that is the pipeline to those dancers to begin with, right? And am I missing any other departments? We have our finance department who's managing the money that I spend. there's the people in our telemarketing who are constantly calling and doing that, our social media team. So there are, you know, a number of elements to from one person's vision to getting that out to the public and worldwide to when presenting a ballet. So hopefully that's just a nice little window into the world.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, clearly, like everything else, COVID has changed that dynamic fundamentally for you. And I know, albeit just glimpses of when you we've been talking about another subject entirely, right? About the leadership at St. Hilary. You've been coming off a call, or there are big decisions to make. You've also been on London Breed's team, right? About COVID and.
Yeah, so the War Memorial Opera House that we perform in is run by the city of San Francisco, which is London Mayor London Breed's team of individuals, which includes the Department of Health. So although she has not invited me to lunch to have these conversations in person, we do get directives from her individuals, especially the Department of Health. And so during COVID, like everything else being shut down, the performing arts, we were like one of the first to get hit. And in San Francisco specifically, we were opening up a Midsummer Night's Dream on, I think it was like March the 4th. And before the curtain went up, we were told that this would be our last performance because the city was shutting down. And so all of a sudden it was our last public performance until further notice, which was like shocking. But yet it was one of the most magical performances we did because everybody was like, whoa. And that seemed like ages ago. And then before there was like the city ordinance to like shelter in place, we took advantage of the very luxurious media suite in the Opera House. And all the unions, dancers, everybody was on board to like capture Midsummer Night's Dream before we were told that we had to shelter in place. And so we captured it without an audience, and it was edited, and then it was released publicly for about 2.5 weeks or so online so that people could continue to see what we had created, because everybody was just feeling like, well, we just did all this work and we couldn't do it. But then after that had happened, and as we tried to, like everyone else, sort of navigate our way through COVID, for the dancers who are like athletes, for months or for weeks at least, they were conditioning, meaning they were taking class, they were exercising, they were stretching, they were doing all the things they would do in the studio in their living rooms and in their kitchens. And although it seemed kind of interesting and fun to begin with, it wasn't sustainable. You could just imagine any other athlete, whether it's basketball, football, there's a certain part that you can only say, okay, I'm working in this confined space. I need to be in the studio so I can actually do what it is that I'm trained to do in the proper fashion, so I can maintain my body. So there was a real push from Helgi to come up with protocols and get approval by the Department of Health so that dancers can take their class. And if you know ballet, class is sort of the fundamental hour and 15 minutes that they take that really helps them align their bodies and continues to flex and work on all the different aspects of their physical being so that they can be prepared for any kind of rehearsal or performance. So we went through extensive protocols and written documentation, consulted with our physicians and everything like that, took the lead of what was happening with the Golden State Warriors, because some of our board members are connected, because we saw that the professional world of sports was starting to move out of shelter in place to practice. And with watching professional sports team, there was a case that said, hey, we're professional dancers who are very athletic. We need an opportunity to continue maintaining our craft. So long story short, an approval was finally given to us. So we were able to start taking class. And then from class, we wanted to figure out, well, how do we start rehearsing? Because the dancers need to have physical touch and they have masks and everything like that. So once again, more protocols were put into place. And then we came up with a testing cadence for COVID. And so all this to say is now the dancers are in class, they're in rehearsals, rehearsing with masks. They're getting tested 3 days a week, which is not very cheap, by the way, but it's allowing us to continue working on our art form because we're preparing for what is our digital season. And the only way we could have prepared for a digital season, meaning filming some of our dances, is for the dancers to actually rehearse. So there were a number of steps that we had to take to get us to where we are today. So COVID has just been this ever-changing landscape. And then as the color tiers shift, we have to kind of navigate and shift through that. So
it's, I mean, I can't imagine. And in the early days of this, as you were talking about just beginning to navigate that, it was one of the industries that I thought unbelievable, all to try and get all that to happen. And then to completely pivot on making it a digital season. So let's go there, especially as it regards the Nutcracker. Here we are in the season of, if anybody wants to join in or put your thumbs up, how many people go or have been and make it a tradition sometime in your life to be at the Nutcracker, especially in San Francisco. Ed, my business partner for sure, and Regina in New York for sure. Taylor, Carly Fang, wonderful, in
Nancy
Philadelphia.
Our ballerina, resident ballerina.
And where are we with our resident ballerina? There she is, Maddie Coe, perfect. So, you know, and I remember, I mean, this was my father and Taylor's Christmas present for 10 straight years. And, you know, the little, not a limo, but just a, you know, town car would pull up and she'd be, you know, all dressed up and off they would go. And this was all my dad wanted for Christmas, the Nutcracker with his granddaughter. And I have to imagine all those traditions, you know, still hold true. People have been doing that for decades. How do you capture it? And you know, there are so many aspects to this, capturing it as a digital performance. As I understand it, this performance that we're seeing digitally, if you buy your ticket, which I think is incredibly reasonable for a price, by the way, is it the stream of the 2008 ballet or is it a new one?
It is the 2008 stream of the Nutcracker. And of course, there was lots of conversation around that. And, you know, in the ideal world, if restrictions lifted and we felt that audiences were comfortable enough to go back into an opera house, we would definitely perform it. But as restrictions continued to be as they were, you know, the sort of the sad reality of us having to cancel our live performance became a reality, which has become a reality for almost every ballet company around the world. And you have to know the Nutcracker is the financial lifeline to any major ballet company. It's the one production that is, you know, brings in all the people because of the time of year, and it really makes a big difference to the bottom line. So when we chose to move forward with a digital version, we knew that we didn't have the approval, and nor was it safe to then try to capture the most current dancers in the company. And so we were very fortunate because not all ballet companies around the world have a professionally produced capture of their production of Nutcracker. And San Francisco Ballet, before my time, just after it made its premiere, I believe it was through PBS or something like that. Like I said, it was before my time, where they did a multi-camera capture of the production for sale. And so knowing that we had that, we knew that a digital showing of Nutcracker would be the way to go. And so the marketing team and communications team have done a wonderful job of packaging it with a bit of a virtual tour and some games and stuff like that for, I think it's like for $49 or something like that.
It's unbelievable how I kind of was shocked. I thought, wait a minute, how are you going to capture the money I used to spend, and probably a lot of people, of the box seats and the gift shop, because she had to have the little ballet slippers, and how do you recapture that at $49 per view?
I think there's a reality where we set expectations because, of course, by this time, so many people are digitally worn out, but also we know that there are diehard Nutcracker fans like yourselves who make it an annual tradition. Then there are people who say, you know what, they go every other year to Nutcracker. And then there's your sort of like people and individuals who've never seen the production before. So you know, our season is called Leap of Faith. So we're just taking a leap of faith that we have our subscribers who are diehard followers, and through word of mouth and through the season of, you know, of the holidays, that people will tune into San Francisco's Nutcracker. We also know that in a digital season, it's a very competitive digital season because this is an opportunity for people to see Nutcrackers from around the world in the comfort of their own home. So we also know we're competing with other companies, but it's a double-edged sword, though. Maybe people who normally see Nutcracker will choose to go somewhere else, and vice versa. So we're welcoming an audience like around the world, to be honest. So there's something exciting about that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we're just, it's a leap of faith, and we're just, we're moving forward. And there was a report the other day that, ticket sales were actually as projected. We weren't too far. So we know that as it gets closer to Christmas and the holidays, that ticket sales will pick up. But we also know that it won't be like what it would normally be.
Right. I mean, I really have to imagine that you're going to capture some people. I'm hoping that this is the silver lining, right? That you are able to capture some people who get it as a gift, or thought, "Oh, I'm never, and I don't think I'd go to the opera house, but let me see this," and then get hooked. And so when we can go back
Mhm.
to the ballet, it's like, wait a minute. I couldn't believe what I was missing, and I had a chance to see it digitally in the comfort of my own home, and now I see what I'm missing. I mean, do you think there's going to be that factor? It feels like there will be, but
Oh, absolutely. I think we're gonna attract new audiences. I mean, there was some research about sort of by generation who were more likely, or who's subscribing to some kind of digital content. And it went by, Generation Z and baby boomers and all that kind of stuff. And so funny enough, almost every generation you looked at was engaging in digital media of some sort. And so that was very promising. And strategically, from the ballet's perspective, we know that even post-COVID, that digital presentation will now become a big part of our world, and almost an expectation to a certain degree. So we're trying to figure out what that looks like, because as much as people will want to come back into the theater, we would have developed a whole new audience and appreciation for the digital capture. So we're looking at what that potentially
good.
do. So
Well, that actually, that was my next question was, will you continue to do this in the post-COVID world? Because you will have captured this new audience who, for myriad reasons,
yeah,
can't go to the opera house, whether it's an age and an ability issue, a financial issue, that they can do that. I mean, it may be that we are exposing a whole new huge group of people to something as important, I think, as the performing arts.
post George Floyd, the ballet is very committed to our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we talk about how we make ballet accessible to everyone. And the digital world will definitely help us with that. And so I know there's discussion about how we continue in this world. And I think after this season, we'll have a lot to chew on with data, reviews, see what our income's like, what our revenues like, what our expenses were like, and that'll really start to shape how digital continues to be a platform with the ballet. I mean, I think first and foremost, everybody's just anxious to have a live audience, but I feel pretty confident and almost certain that the digital world will be with us. So we're looking at how we can really embrace it and sort of reinvent what dance and ballet looks like in a digital world, you know. So it's kind of exciting in that way.
It is.
Mhm.
Shelley, you grew up in San Francisco. Your mother had been going to the ballet a couple decades before you were born. What, you
Yeah.
know, you and I were talking about the patrons. I'd love you to talk about that with Chris.
Yeah, well, the first thing I need to say is there has to be a line item in the budget for the lost revenue in separating Michela Abrams from your gift shop on any given season. Some serious damage could have been done there, Chris. I'm
Well,
just
we can still do damage because I
okay.
think the gift shop's online now, and
Okay, good girl. If that's
There you go, Shelley.
Um, Yes, I did. I grew up in San Francisco, and my mother was went to the symphony every Thursday in the afternoon. She had season tickets to the opera and the symphony and the ballet. She was one of those San Francisco ladies, not a Getty running with the Gettys kind of person. Just a very kind of a cool, laid back woman who was really, really interested in music, and so were her friends. And they went, they wanted the whole experience on a regular basis, and bought season tickets. And this was a major part of my life growing up. And I'm just curious how the San Francisco Ballet patron has evolved, because in her lifetime, even the husband started disappearing, and then the male companions were joining the ladies, the older and older ladies. And, it was just really interesting to watch the audience evolve.
I mean, the audience has evolved in many different ways. And I can only talk based on my experience from what I see when I walk into the house. I mean, if I had somebody here from the marketing department, they can actually give you data on how that's all changed. But I mean, clearly, when we do our full length narratives, like the Romeo and Juliets and the Swan Lakes and stuff like that, you generally find, they generally sell better, first of all, because they're like these name brand full length features. And they bring out a wide range of audience in terms of demographic and age and all that kind of stuff, just simply because, I'm going to go see Swan Lake, I'm going to go see Sleeping Beauty. So there's a lot of variety. And then when we get into our contemporary work, then you generally see a younger demographic because the work's more abstract and not so narrative. So you see a shift. But like I said, we have our hardcore subscribers, and so they'll come see all of our ballets, because some of them are big fans of the dancers and they like to see them. Some people will come see Swan Lake like 5 different times because they want to see different casts, right? And compare like which cast is better than the other, or not even better, but every cast brings a different take on the roles. If they're doing Odette in Swan Lake, or if they're doing Cinderella in Cinderella, or so they just bring different energies to the role. So the audience changes wildly. Every year we have our gala, and unfortunately this year we're not having our big gala at City Hall. But when you're at that gala, you realize how hip the audience is, and I'm talking like from young to old. It's a hip crowd, and that's not to take away from the opera, but the opera tends to be, it's a different, ballet's always been like the poor cousin to opera. So it has a different group of individuals who attend it. And so you can tell that when you go to either performance, you'll be like, oh, this is an opera crowd. And they go, ooh, this is a ballet crowd. So
That makes
Right.
sense.
The 2021 season, all digital.
All digital.
And how many? The same number of ballets, I believe 4?
Yeah, you'll for the digital season, you will get, there is no shortage. You will get everything you would have, plus a little bit more, I believe, had you had a subscription to come see it live. And with that, we're premiering 3 new ballets on film. So we're currently filming 3 ballets very carefully through COVID, of ballets that were intended to be on stage. Actually, one of them we're still looking at capturing on stage in its entirety. The other 2 are being created specifically on location in a very film. So it's not a capture of a ballet. It's not like you watching Nutcracker. This is created and designed and choreographed specifically for film. So I've been extremely busy working on those. I'm leading. I've turned into an executive producer. So I've gone from production director to executive producer, and I'm working with a great team of individuals who are strong and are talented in the world of film. So the 2 worlds are now combining the worlds. So we're professionals what we do on stage, and I engaged and brought in the professional world of filmmaking so that the 2 of us could meet in the middle and create some wonderful stuff for our audiences.
Well, that's my hope, is that when we're able to go back, everybody who really craves just being there to experience it, with other people, and the intermissions and the gala, which I had the pleasure of going to just twice in the time I was in the city, lived in the city. But there's something about that that's hard to replace. However, I love this idea that we will have two different communities and audiences, and one on digitally much larger, and as you point out, global, because people in New York and Connecticut and Florida and every place else can choose to be with the San Francisco Ballet on that season, which would have not been something we would have done before. So I'm hoping that the film part of this actually makes the audience potential 10x what it would be otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, that's our hope too, that after you see what we've created on film, it'll just inspire to be like, okay, I need to see these guys live on stage, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You need watch kits. Does that sound familiar?
Sorry for that.
You need watch kits, little kits that people can buy to watch the opera at home, get dressed up, have your martini.
Well, actually, we're having a virtual gala. I don't know if it's gone on sale. I know it's gone privately on sale. It's our virtual gala where I believe dinner from McCall's will be sent to you with a bottle of champagne. There's a price tag. It's by table. I think it's in the, $25,000 range or something of nature. But you get to invite your friends to this literally gala. So it's kind of the same event, and there'll be breakout rooms where Helgi and dancers will come to your table, Zoom table. And so it's being it's being planned, and you'll be viewing some ballets that will be recorded specifically by some of our principal dancers specifically for that gala. So it's a real sort of fundraising event, but it's also meant to give you something different than your average Zoom or your average sort of logging in. It's going to be a special event, and so we're working on that as well.
Wonderful. Shelley, we have a number of questions mounting in the chat room, so I thought we would begin.
And I actually have one more question of my own, which is who is charged with taking care of the mental health of these dancers during such a challenging time? People have been working their whole lives toward this moment and have had this crushing, change of.
There's resources that we give them. I think it's EAP, is it? Through our HR department, that they can access if they feel like they need anything. Within our organization, we have some employee resource groups. We have two of them. One's called Gradient, that represents BIPOC, and the other one is called Queer Umbrella for LGBTQ members of our organization. And they're resource groups for individuals if they need to just talk and be just anything outside of the world of ballet. And we have a wellness center. So the dancers specifically, there's a wellness program for them that includes physio and different opportunities for them to stay healthy, including mental health. So there are some avenues that they can take outside of through the organization, and then of course whatever they need outside the organization. So, but it's a very good question because it is a challenging time for everyone.
I bet. It's wonderful to hear. Okay, the first question is about the Midsummer Night's Dream performance. Is there a way to see that still, or to access that?
That will be part of our digital subscription. So if you, in our Leap of Faith 21 season, I believe Midsummer Night's Dream will be streaming in January. So,
and then related then, could you foresee a hybrid model going forward with subscriptions where people subscribe to both live and digital performances?
Well, that sounds pretty cool, but I couldn't answer that. That's a little premature, but it's definitely something that I'm sure the marketing department down the hall is probably considering. I mean, if we're going that route, I will know about it at some point because I'm responsible for all the digital captures. So I think a hybrid model could be something that could easily happen, for sure.
Well, if they haven't thought of it yet, Nancy Davis Coe here
Yeah.
gave them this stellar idea.
So Nancy, you're hired.
Okay.
I
Okay.
have to wait, Shelley, I have to say it's only fair after the hours and hours and hours I've spent in the parking lot outside Oakland Ballet School while my two kids rehearse the Nutcracker. I feel very qualified for this.
Yeah.
So
As you are. Okay, and our MVP regular return, one of our MVPs and regular returning guests, Drew, you have a question. Did you want to ask that or would you like me to ask it on your behalf? All right. Wow. Okay. Drew says, with Debbie Allen and her Dada, what other youth opportunities are you seeing out there?
I know we are partnering with the Boys and Girls Club. I know that we're doing that specifically. I believe a lot of ballet schools are still trying to function within COVID to create opportunities for young individuals who are still interested in ballet. I'm assuming in relationship to ballet is the question. So as far as I know, that is still happening in large. I can't say I'd be speaking out of turn or be making stuff up, but those are the two avenues I know. Us with the Boys and Girls Club, there's some stuff going on there. And I know from the school's perspective, we are open and enrollment was still very good. And especially in our pre-ballet. And yeah, I think we're going to continue to keep our doors open as long as the mayor says we can.
Okay, and from Anita, curious to know, have you seen the Spike Lee film of David Byrne's Broadway show? And if so, will you use a similar technique, shoot from the back of the audience, different views and close-ups to make it interesting and a unique experience?
I have not seen that yet, so I should take a look at that. I did, however, on HBO Max watch The West Wing. They did a capture of The West Wing from the Orpheum in LA, and I just loved the way they captured that whole episode of The West Wing and the camera angles and everything about it, and in its minimal form, and I thought it was still effective. So in our digital season this year, we are capturing some stuff on stage. So we'll be exploring. I think there's no stone will be left unturned. So I'm hoping some exciting things will happen, but I will have to keep that one in mind. I'm just so busy.
A film recommendation and a brilliant idea. Okay, yeah. Just keep score over here. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. American Utopia is a fabulous film, the Spike Lee, David Byrne concert film. So there's another film rec for you. Is there a hot chocolate nutcracker in the future?
Is there a hot chocolate nutcracker? I know that documentary is on Netflix right now. So I've been meaning to watch it. I mean, the hot chocolate nutcracker has been around for quite some time, and it's very exciting. And I think we need to, me personally, I think we need to look for opportunities where we're bringing in a diverse sort of perspective on ballet and dance. And I know that's a conversation. These things technically don't happen overnight, but it's in our consciousness. And now that we know better, we have to do better. So I can only hope moving forward that we'll continue to find opportunities to either partner or present something that is a little more diverse in its presentation, whether it be Nutcracker or any other ballet.
That actually, I wanted to piggyback on that, Chris, because that was one of my questions is, as I, in all industries, I'm imagining you meet and know many other production directors and executive producers of ballets all over the country and in Canada, maybe. And I'm wondering if that is a topic of discussion, is diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry itself for ballet companies and all of the people that it takes to produce it, as you outlined for us at the beginning. What are ballet companies around the nation doing to address this?
I mean, there's an organization called Dance USA who hosts many forums. And I know there's an artistic directors council where Helgi attends and meets with other directors around the country and around the world. And they share ideas and thoughts around how to be more inclusive, how to look at things a little bit more differently. And I think in every facet of our industry, there are groups talking, even within our own production area, we talk amongst ourselves. And I think at the end of the day, it's about creating a pipeline in marketing, in the school, in production, you name it. And that pipeline extends itself out even outside the walls of ballet, right? But in ballet specific, which, for the most part, it's a very Eurocentric art form, right? You look at the stage, it's not represented by a lot of color, people of color, and there's all kinds of reasons for that, including accessibility. We talk about this with the orchestra too, like not a lot of children of color have an opportunity to learn how to play some of these instruments. It costs money to go to these schools. And so how do you create a pipeline for these individuals so that they have an opportunity, right? And then there are other cultures where, like every audition you see, they're like, they're from the other day they were saying like, from Korea or from China, like there's this whole segment, a whole group demographically that culturally they have the means or the accessibility to do it. And it really depends. So I think we just have to continue to have the conversations and create the pipelines. Like ballet schools need more teachers of color, whether they're African American, whether they're Hispanic. There just needs to be more representation so young children see people like them teaching and learning the things that they're interested in. So it's a big topic of conversation, to answer your question, amongst ballet companies around the world. And I think it's all trying to be addressed. I think there are people out there who are impatient and they're saying, this is taking too long, or you're now coming to the table and all that kind of stuff. And like any organization, you can only do what you can based on your resources, your time, and the people within your organization who are willing to do the work, right? Because it's a lot of hard work, like anything else, and it needs to be sustainable work. Like all this DE&I work now, it needs to be sustainable. It can't be a checkbox, right? It has to be sustainable, like everything else we do in our businesses. So there's a real responsibility, and I think a lot of board leadership, I know in our company, is they're being brought into the conversation because it all starts at the top, right? You need the board leadership to bring in other people of color into board leadership. There just needs to be representation on all aspects of it, and then you'll start to see a shift. So it's starting to happen.
So if we were all to look at a yearbook of the SF Ballet Company's team, from the dancers to the technical support to the marketing team and all of those that you so capably mentioned at the beginning, would we see the face of America?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree you would see it. It's interesting. Like if you look at leadership, you wouldn't see the face of America. If you looked, you know what I mean? So it's all based on, like sort of those tiers, like, maybe lower level entry jobs, you might see a little bit more face of America. So it's all about sort of what does leadership look like, and then how's that trickling down, right? So I don't think San Francisco would get a ballet would get an A+ on that, but maybe we're like a B.
Is there anyone that you know of, any company and in any city doing it the best?
I don't know if anybody's doing it the best. I think that would be a little. I don't think I could say, I'm loving what they're doing. Like American Ballet Theater, we have colleagues over there, and we've met with them on calls like this to kind of, sort of share notes. And we're kind of all at the same pace. I mean, we're taking baby steps, because you don't want to step on a grenade and all of that kind of stuff. So people they want to do the work, but they're also a little gun shy about some of the work. I think in Europe, there might be some companies that have been doing this a little bit longer. You'd be surprised. I think more the contemporary companies, more the contemporary dance companies, they're a little bit more, that's a little different. But the world of ballet specifically has been a little bit more challenging, and there's definitely an awakening of that, for sure.
Maddie, Co, would you unmute yourself and ask this question or make this comment? Because it's a really important one.
Sure. What?
I think it's the one,
Oh.
I think that was my comment.
That's
Oh, gee, I'm sorry.
That was the dance mom's comment, because my heart is just breaking for all those kids who have been training and working, and this was their big year. They were going to be Snow Queen, or they were going to be Marie, or whatever the role was, and they can't dance it this year. Next year they're going to be too tall, or they will have moved into soccer or whatever. And I think Amazon figured this out, because Amazon has made an ad like this where the girl is dancing. I can't even tell you what she's doing, because I'm weeping 3/4 of the way through the commercial, but she's, trying to salvage her dance career. And it's just, my heart, there's so many tragedies from this pandemic. And that to me is one of the biggest ones, is these kids who have worked so hard as dancers, and this Nutcracker means so much to them in 2020, and they just don't get to do it. So I'll probably cry again. I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, it's one moment in time. I mean, there's one moment in time, that they have. It's tough.
Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely.
I did have another question for Christopher, though, if I can raise it.
Please go
Because
ahead.
I'm wondering, what was the biggest adjustment for you? You said you worked with the opera. What was the biggest adjustment for you moving into a ballet community?
Well, so my heart was in ballet, then I went to opera. And so the adjustment from ballet to opera was like a ballet is generally like, you can go to an evening of ballet and it'll last maybe 2 hours tops, 2.5 hours tops. When you go to an evening of opera, that can go to 5 hours easily. And so that was a lot to sit there and listen to singing for 5 hours. And I mean, the most wonderful voices on the planet, but that's a commitment in a different way than it is for ballet. So that was a little challenging. And I'll never forget, I remember we were doing Aida and I was in the back of the lighting booth, and in Aida, there's this huge ballet section. And so the ballet company of the Met was dancing. And I was just like, yes, finally, some dancing. And I was so excited, and everybody's like, oh, you're such a ballet guy. And so I didn't realize how much I missed dancing or watching dance when I was in opera. And it's also, what's different about working in an opera company versus a dance company, or specifically a ballet company. In a ballet company, the dancers are a group of individuals who are resident to the company and can have a career as short as 1 year or as long as 15 years. So there's this family, or dysfunctional family, depending on which way you want to look at it. But there's a family of us, right? And so you get to know each other, and you work. I know I'm privileged. I get to work with the artists and the dancers in a way that is really fantastic. When you work in an opera company, the singers are coming from all over the world, and they can only sing every other night. And so for me personally, there was a bit of a disconnect between the artist and myself. And it wasn't for lack of trying or anything. It's just the nature of how opera is set up. You just don't necessarily get that level of interaction that you do with the dancers. So it's just different. And the dancers are much younger, and I mean, they start their careers as early as 16 and can, by 35, maybe 37, they're calling it quits. And in opera, you're getting a wide range. But once again, they're there for a short period of time. So when they're there, they're so focused on what they're doing. Whereas in ballet, we have different casts. So you just get to meet the dancers. And then, of course, as a touring company, because part of my responsibility too is to tour, I get to tour the world with the company. And so when you're on tour with the dancers and staff, and you're stuck in this beautiful hotel in Moscow, you get to know one another because you're sitting at the bar having a cocktail, all those things, right? So you get to know each other in a different way than had you been in the studio. So you really start to develop this relationship, which is really cool. Or you just end up sitting with them on the plane because you didn't know they were going to be in the next seat. And next thing you know, you're on a 13-hour flight and you just got to know a dancer in a way that you would have never gotten to know. So, so I think it's the socialization that I find different between ballet and opera, but that's just me personally. I'm sure somebody in opera go, what's he talking about? So.
Well, we are at our end, and I can't thank you enough, especially given all that's going on right now for the ballet, for you to take your time with all of us this evening, Chris. Thank you so, so much. I want to encourage everyone to please go to the ballet, and we'll put it, in chat, but pretty much you can find the sfballet.org and be able to buy a ticket to the Nutcracker, literally for all that, even the behind the scenes and the tour of the Opera House, $49. What a great gift for somebody. But I hope we'll all continue to support it, because it is just too important a piece of culture and representative of so much of our future and our legacy. So please do that. And Chris, if there are any other links that you want us to have to go to, like the gala for the $25,000 table.
I don't know what that link is yet. I don't think it's a public thing, but I think it will be out at some point. So if and when I do get that, I'm happy to share it with you, Michela.
Wonderful.
To reach out to people. I heard it's going to be available to the public. So
And she's gonna need that merch link, Chris.
oh, well, that's easy. You can just go on the website under, like, I think it's ballet shop, and I can hook you up directly with Valerie, who does all of our shopping for us. So.
All right.
Wow. Okay, Nancy and Maddie, we know that's where you'll be also for Christmas. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Next week, we are back to cooking, and with Xanthi Drunkus, a dear friend and a chef, and Drew. So, and then on December 14th, we will end the 40th week, our final collective conscience of the year, with a group of Fijian women who came to this country to help care for our senior members and people who were not as fortunate, they felt, as they, and their voices are angelic. So that's what we'll end our year on. So thank you very much. We'll see you next Monday, and have a wonderful post-Thanksgiving week. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye.
Yes.